and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together with our ideas that we've been thinking about all week, and we combine them together, sort of stir-fry style, into a story. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. Who wants to do the synopsis?
I maybe could.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so like I said last time, last week, my story element was sequel, and this story is a sequel going back 4 years to episode number 7. So the best thing you could do is to just pause it, go back, listen to episode number 7. And then last week, we started up kind of at some time after Jake, the space pirate, who had a big freighter that he flew around in and moved stuff and got paid for it, encountered an alien raider. And these alien raiders had the technology that they would just kind of wink out. And it was, mankind had been, had developed faster than light speed. They were able to slip into a layer next to normal space and hyperspace kind of thing where they could, get around, and they were settling planets farther and farther out. But the these aliens had this really unique technology, and Jake managed to get some licks in before they could get away, and they crashed on a kind of a less developed planet. Jake went down, finished them off, and then just like ripped off their tech, reverse engineered it, and he was able then from that time forward to do that same thing where he would kind of wink out, and he could raid, he could load up his cargo holds, and then just disappear. And anyway, Jake, when he was checking out this alien ship in the captain's quarters, he found like an old-fashioned felt top hat, and he thought, cool, and he put it on. Well, this thing was like an AI interface and was able to connect, he just had the right brain patterns or whatnot. And he was able to access all the tech that the aliens had. But he found out that this top hat was really from like a third layer, which is where the aliens would wink to from space to space. They could just wink out and then just reappear wherever. If they had a clear set of data for where they were jumping from to where they were going, it was practically instantaneous. So that's kind of the story. There had been an effort. The Space League Marshal Service had been trying to track these people down, these raiders, and it turns out that there was some other of these old clothes, and one of these marshals was able to interface with a pair of gloves. And it turns out that the people that lived in the third space, the people, I call them, the creatures, the AIs, what Top Hat was doing was really messing things up, because the violence of his jumps often were tearing up portions of the third kind of layer. And so the gloves were going to try to get a hold of him and cool his jets a little bit so they wouldn't, wreck the joint. So that was kind of where the original story ended like 4 years ago. So in the sequel, as we started, to Captain Confidence of the Space League Marshal Service was the inheritor of the gloves now generations down the line, and the epic effort to track down Top Hat continued. But in Levi had in the spelling out the history now that had taken place in the new story, it's like the past is a dream. More of these Top Hat AI type creatures have made it over and begun kind of gaslighting humanity into
Right.
kind of giving up. They had they introduced, people thought of these beings as kind of fairies, kind of magical, and they had the idea of contradicting the past. People began to doubt everything. The earth had kind of dwindled into myth. The outer rim planets were kind of carrying on as usual, but the more civilized ones, it had gotten to be really
Depressing.
depressing. And in fact, one entire planet colony had just gone dark. Bought into the idea that it was all just a simulation. It was a pretty dark thing. The Seth explained the economic system, and everything had been laid out for you, so to speak. It's like you're paid a stipend, and but you had little choice as to consumption. It wasn't a consumption driven economy at all. It was people's needs were met, but it was very authoritarian, kind of, wrote down in my notes, 1984 kind of style. Personal initiative was virtually eliminated as inconvenient for the powers that were in control, that kind of thing. Is that kind of a fair shot of it?
I kind of thought of it like the gig economy. It's
Yeah.
like everyone just kind of every morning you get orders on your phone like, here, go and, bring this chess set over to your neighbor's house and play with them. Or go and pick up groceries and bring it here. Or go and deliver this thing over here. And you get paid for that. And if you ever fell out of the sort of understood or recognized society, you would just stop getting orders and you would just like kind of starve to death because you couldn't go to the store and buy things for yourself
Yeah.
because everyone was kind of preconditioned to operate under this certain idea. That's kind of what I was thinking of when Seth. It's like a gig economy. It's like
Right.
you get it's like everyone works for Uber, except Uber also tells you when to like talk to your neighbors and be kind to people.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So is that it? That's where we
Well,
are?
yeah. Is that enough? I think it's enough so people can follow along. You can always go back
Right,
and listen to it yourselves if you've missed it.
right. So here we are. What story elements did you guys have this week?
I have famous person.
I
I
have anti-hero.
anti-hero, that's good. I have unique pet. So, famous person, anti-hero, unique pet, I think is the order.
All right, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay, famous person is Jack Huge Arms Hansen, HA for short. He is kind of the boss, on one of the outer rim mining planets, and he's legendary in his physical strength. He works out, he's got muscles, and they just called him Jack. Jack Hansen is his name, but they called him Jack Huge Arms Hansen, and then it just dwindled down. He's HA. That's how HA for huge arms, and kind of a gregarious, tough kind of a guy. Really good-hearted though. He's not mean or bullying in any way. He doesn't need to bully anybody. He walks into a room and takes command just by being in the room. He's kind of cool. But anyway, he is descended, actually, an ancestor of his had been friends with Jake, had a close working relationship prior to the alien incursions. And because he is just kind of a pirate, brigand, outer rim freight guy. He's one of those guys you could go to if something needed to get done, right? And so this HA had kind of he became famous as the story of his heroic encounter with Top Hat became known, and it had two elements to it: the story itself, and that it was told and spread literally in defiance of the subtle lockdowns, canceling, and censorship of the Top Hat creatures. Um, HA has a guy that does tech for him. He's a genius. He's one of these guys that immediately figured out that as the kind of the life force seemed to be dimming and dwindling in the core planets. There are still enough robust kind of cowboy types out farther out that had come under less control and realized something was wrong. So he began to encrypt things in ways that they could still, and he had found ways to get a hold of the actual information
Right.
before it had been altered. So the story itself, the incident, is that a big freighter had come and loaded up a big shipment, and it was really important to the planet. I mean, they had crop failure in order to buy food to get over to the next season. This was a big deal, and Top Hat's ship had commandeered and was offloading, and HA had taken a quick raider, kind of a scout ship raider, but heavily armed, and was able to sneak up because the big freighter had masked Top Hat's vessel, so he didn't see him coming, and was able to swing around and lock on with grappling cables. And these just like, you know, uh, they the technology that Top Hat had could defeat, you know, uh, a tractor force of some kind. But
Right.
this was literally physically attached, and he and his guys just did, suited up, and they were out uh, planning devices, and he just said, "Look, you guys aren't going to get away with this. This is I need to talk to Top Hat." You know, and so
Who was Jake at the time?
well, yeah, yeah, Jake, right. And so they let him in, they let HA in, and they had a couple of security droids, and Jake, huge arms, gets in the airlock, gets into the ship, and just like basically grabs each of these guys and smashes their heads together and takes one of their weapons and just charges right into the control room. And he sees what's left of Jake is kind of, more tubes than actual biology anymore,
Right. Right.
right? But the thing of it is that the Top Hat, had this very intense relationship, symbiotic relationship with Jake, and Jake remembers this planet and remembers that HA's ancestor, and so he said, "Look, this might look like a nice score for you, but it's devastation for us, especially with what's going on, uh, towards the core worlds. We're not getting much support out here." And literally talked him out of the job and replaced the cargo and let them on their merry way. And this was like such a heroic thing to have actually done. And then his tech guy was able to get word out, get you know uh get data out so that this story got spread around the galaxy. And it was such a it people just their hearts were just stirred by something heroic actually happening. And then the fact that there's this new kind of underground dissemination of information contradicting, pushing back on the gaslighting and like the canceling and the censorship and the lockdowns and all that. So that's how he became famous. It's really, he kind of became kind of a legend because he's this colorful character anyway, and then to pull off this thing, and then also get the story out. That was kind of the main part of it. So
Cool.
that's the famous person.
Great.
Huge arms.
Seth, antihero?
The anti-hero, his name is Derek. Now, as they have been, locking these different worlds down, the information, because everything's kind of pre-catered for a lot of people, and different places might have more of a lockdown than others.
Right.
But in a lot of these things, that's kind of where these things are, taking control, managing every aspect, corralling everybody into these, I guess you could say, simulated constructs that keep them. I'm thinking like a sim game, right? Where they're kind of building this and then corralling everybody down into the different paths that they want as they're trying to like
Right.
build their own thing, and they're kind of trying to control every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Now, one of the thoughts that I had that has to do with this is to dupe all the people into something as if, everything is simulated and it means nothing could be half true. Because an idea I had as far as, what that third space could be that allows them to not just faster than like travel, but like jump out and jump back in at a different location
Yeah.
would be like if it was simulated and you had a tech that allowed you to basically like a save point, right? Like jump out and reload at a different save point.
Yeah. Right.
And so if that's, something like it is, if people started, let's say years ago, starting to pick up that, like, oh, maybe figuring that out. And so they tried to corral everybody in and then giving them something that they were finding out, but then twisting it to then make it something that was kind of a dystopian thing filled with, a
Right.
question that, then what is real? And then, oh, well, if we can just be given what we need, do what we need, and it keeps them kind of controlled. So basically, Derek, he's someone that has started refiguring some of that out, and he's how would you put it? Kind of like, not okay, a little disclaimer for, because I know we try to keep this family friendly. But you guys have seen the movie Hancock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it'd be the idea is he's kind of like that, kind of an outsider, and I would say kind
Right.
of that demeanor, right? So he's kind of a good guy, but not necessarily couth,
As the definition of an anti-hero is, yes. I would
right?
say that pretty much defines an anti-hero.
And so what he has figured out is basically how to step outside of the control system that's being used and use it to his advantage. And part of it is, let's say, accessing that third space, but from, but without the tech necessarily. He can't necessarily jump off the planet he's on, but he can basically step in and manipulate a lot of things around him.
Okay.
To be kind of like a superhero, but he then gets, I guess you could say, ignored by the other people around him, because the people that are then giving all these instructions to the people, they don't, they can't really do anything about him, and so they just kind of hedge society away from him, and so
Right.
it
That
gives
makes
him
sense.
almost a free reign to kind of come in, kind of take what he wants or needs, but because it's, let's say, minuscule on the larger sense, the best thing that the people that are in control can do is simply just kind of oust him from the rest of society.
Kind of like
And
a
so he
John the
kind of,
Baptist.
kind of,
He clearly
but he's
holds
not.
power. He clearly holds power. People are scared of getting in his way, but he also has been framed in a way that he's uncouth and not part of regular society.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
camel
mean,
hair
I mean,
and
I,
locust and wild honey, that would qualify.
I mean, I kind of imagine him living off kind of by himself. He comes into town, and it's not like he buys anything. He doesn't have any money, right? He's not given any jobs, so he just kind of takes what he wants. But then everyone just kind of looks at him like, how are you going to get away with that? And then he just kind of like melds through, kind of can jump around a little bit, phase in and out. Maybe not completely, but just kind of do what he wants. But then if he's around, everyone will start getting instructions. Oh, you need to go to, you know, Joe's house and play chess. You need to do this, and kind of redirects them away from.
Right. Right.
But so basically, kind of found a way to use that on a personal level to kind of get what he wants, but again, being trapped in maybe the world that he's in, kind of makes him a little bit, callous and selfish. But obviously, a thorn in the flesh of the these beings that are trying to corral everybody into,
Right.
these closed systems.
Cool. I like him.
Yeah.
So it's time for the unique pet, but I had kind of a world building shift to this whole thing. I think we might be making our first ever Matrix book. Okay. So here's a picture. Bunch of humans, thousands of humans went into a Matrix type thing hundreds of years ago after a nuclear war. They had tons of AI set up, disconnected from their network, right? Then they had a middle network where they had a bunch of maintenance AI that would keep watch on them. Then they had the network where their brains lived, okay? So they move around and stuff. However, something's wrong, or the time to wake up is near. People need to start waking up in order to start turning maintenance machines on. Right? It's been 100 years. It's their bodies are cloned. It's time for them to wake up. But humanity, these 10,000 people have gotten pretty comfortable in their space, right? So you have two sets of AI on the third tier who sit out in this network trying to organize the system and get it up and going. But within them, because it's been so long, they've fractured as far as opinions. There's some that want to go into the world and enter into the people's minds, and they've come up with a method for convincing people that this is all a dream, this is all fake, you need to wake up now. And then there's the other ones who are still abiding by their original code, their original what's it called? Prerogatives, which is to keep them safe. And the world isn't 100% safe outside. There's still a lot of bad things outside. So according to it needs a couple more hundred years to make sure everything's really safe. Then it'll start. So these two AIs are in conflict with each other, and so one decides to enter into the world and search for someone who is compatible with it, aka Top Hat, right? And then Gloves comes in to try and find him to stop him from upsetting the balance,
Right.
right? Because they need to stay safe. Humans need to stay in the thing, And so we have a complete and total role reversal where now Top Hat is in fact the hero, having found one person 5 generations ago who can actually communicate with him and has been jumping around into the outer network and pulling more AIs to help convince. And Gloves has been recruiting AIs and building the system of control in order to help protect people's minds, right? Only through routine is humanity going to be saved, right? I realize this is like a complete role reversal. In our previous story, the Top Hat was the bad guy, but this is the sequel. We now know the truth. So I present to you the unique pet. So in the middle space, which is where humans enter when they want to go through hyperspace, right? It's not as fast as entering the larger structural network of the outside, but it's a little bit faster because it's a communications network, right? What they are these little tiny maintenance bots being AIs that protect packet lines, right? They travel back and forth along fiber cables, like internally as packets, and read packet and data loss and, report that a million times a second to the maintenance bots to fix, right? Because things wear away after hundreds of years. And if you're getting packet loss, then you need to send a maintenance bot in there and get it fixed. These little bots, again, this is not a robot, this is an AI, can carry anything and have incredible reporting, but they also are completely, how do I say this? They're not unique at all. The way that they were built was to not deliver any information that was to not stick out at all. So when in one of these travelings between the networks, when one of them finds its way into the network of minds, right, where the humans live, it takes the picture, it takes the image of a jellyfish, right? A large jellyfish, like the ones with the really long tails,
Yeah.
It's probably about like 20 feet long,
Tentacle. Yeah.
right? And it's huge. It's like 5 feet across.
Cool.
And it floats around for a while, as it tries to perform its duty. And eventually it finds a human being with a brain pattern that it can recognize, right? Because it's been maintaining optic cables in this outside network. And what the unique pet can do is that when it attaches itself to you, you become you can travel any distance like by yourself incredibly quickly, right? Because it literally finds the most efficient paths along sort of the optical cables and all the various machinery that are connecting the servers that have the human minds together, And B, it can completely hide you from anything. because it's designed to only deliver information and not leave any fingerprint of itself. Once it connects to a person, they're effectively hidden from the system completely. They can't be looked at, they can't be recognized, they can't operate, automatic doors won't open for them, nothing. They're just completely hidden. The only downside is that it's once it's on you, and you can't take it off, and it only comes off when you die. So as far as being a pet, I don't know, but it's a kind of a wild animal that finds people.
Cool.
So what do you guys think of my dramatic and complete reframing of the story?
I think it's fun.
I like it.
Yep.
Great. So let's kind of figure out what we got here. So we have what's the commander of the space cadets?
Oh, Captain Confidence
Captain Confidence, right? He's the wielder
of the
gloves. And I would say he kind of portrays a like Javert lawful good kind of air about him, right? The gloves, whether it's from the gloves or the gloves are attracted to that, he is all about setting things right and doing things according to the law.
Keeping the balance.
Right. And then you have Top Hat with sort of an aging Jake, who's been kind of kept alive through all these years, who himself doesn't really know why or whatever, and then you have this famous person. What was his name again?
Huge Arms.
Huge Arms.
Yeah.
Huge Arms. And then you have Derek, the weird fluke in the system. And that's it. That's the story. Thanks, everybody. No, just kidding. So do you think that the big reveal should come like right at the end when everyone wakes up? Because Huge Arms is technically against the Top Hat. Even though he's for the freedom of information, he doesn't quite understand that what this AI that's taken the image of a top hat and what Jake are trying to accomplish,
Well, really, I would say as far as how that's presented, it's a matter of perspective as far as what you would say is, the top hat the villain, or is the gloves the villain then.
Right.
Because if they are AI, they are just simply, let's say, performing inside of their programmed programming. And so they're doing what they find best or right to do according to their programming. Where the one says, okay, this was the time set to wake people up so that they can take care of certain things. The other one's program says that it's, whatever reason it might not be safe for them to wake up. And so it's trying to keep them in and creating some way to keep them in.
Right.
And whether that is to convince some people that, they just, giving them their orders, sliding them into different, droned, existences, or whether it's, convincing people that they really need to fight for, the purity of, free speech, and making whatever gets people to, let's say, hold on to what they have, then they won't want to wake up. They'll want to stay here. They'll want to be, continue this, right? Which isn't bad if, in fact, it's not safe for them to wake up.
Wait, there's a third option, which is that neither of them are bad, and they're actually working in concert to sort of rile up humanity enough so that they don't wake up and are depressed and then try to go back.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, neither of you guys have read the God Emperor of Dune. It's kind of like the God Emperor of Dune. You create
most of it.
You create a situation so hard and difficult that you force all of humanity to subconsciously decide and to burn into their brain a reality that literally causes them to survive.
Yeah.
So it's like this symphony between two forces, literally pitting humanity against each other, and the strong ones are going to rise up and become leaders, and it will cause it so that when they wake up at the end of the book, they will survive.
Yeah.
Because they've been like sufficiently trained. But trained isn't the right word. Conditioned, maybe.
Yeah. I kind of like the, this role reversal stuff. I thought of like Wreck-It Ralph, just because I'm a bad guy doesn't mean I'm a bad guy,
Yeah. Or they're in a therapy group and
Yeah,
someone says something, he's like, thanks a lot, Satan.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like Satan right there.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking about like this Derek guy,
Uh-huh.
who is like kind of connected outside.
Right.
Right. My brain thinking that maybe he was like the master architect.
Yeah.
So there's some part of his subconscious that just kind of doesn't, the trees are too straight. The curves and the leaves are too perfect.
Okay.
There's just some part of his brain that just turns over and can't. And so he's learned to kind of start to twist it. And these AIs look at him and are like, well, he's clearly a thing that we're going to have to deal with. But right now we're just going to ignore him.
Yeah.
Because what else are we supposed to do?
Right.
So there's kind of like this fake, not a fake fight, but kind of like a fake fight.
Yeah.
Between, these forces, maybe of like the outside, maybe as Huge Arms, as his message and his words start to spread, there's kind of like this growing, this armada gets built in the central universes, and we write about it in the book, but you don't really notice it when you're reading it, but it talks about the ships leaving and all the streets being empty.
Yeah.
Because if you were really to know, everyone left, because there's only 10,000 people in this world that spans galaxies.
Right.
So the streets are empty, the houses abandoned, the whole thing. And if you read it, you'd realize, oh, everyone left the central worlds to get
Right.
on these ships. Because what are these ships but like this giant sort of not chaos moment, but this it's like a catalyst.
Right.
This is the catalyst for change. And then, there's the fights, not the fight, they don't come to fights, it's just the mobilization of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like this clash. And interesting enough, once you reread the book, you'll really notice this, like no ship gets destroyed.
Yeah.
No person ever gets killed.
Yeah.
Right?
They're safe in their gel pack.
Yeah, people are restrained. People are knocked unconscious. People are whatever. There's just no death.
Uh-huh.
And once you reread it, you sort of see it, the little sort of artifacts, the little sort of pieces that point to it. But like, Huge Arms is famous, right? But he still only ever talks to 5 people.
Right.
And yeah, they spread the word out to the other places, but he never leaves the asteroid where he lives.
Right.
And it's like once you reread it, you sort of, oh, okay. You're like, oh yeah, that's right, because there's only 10,000 people here.
Right.
So it's not like we can't like fill a couple football stadiums, because then we'd be out of people.
Right.
We can't have 100 million ships. There's only 3 ships, because we've only got 6,000 people to put in them.
Yeah.
So just different stuff like that. And then as this comes to a head, there's some great conflict between Jake, or maybe Jake's the engineer.
Okay.
That could be it. Or maybe Jake and Derek were both engineers, and there's this kind of giant conflict and somehow everyone sort of decides it's time to stand up.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of all professes this desire to go and make a place for themselves and to be alive and to grab life by the horns and to, all the things. And then all of a sudden it kind of like fades away, or one guy gets knocked out and then, his eyes kind of open, but his eyes feel weird. They don't feel right. And the light looks wrong. He sits up and, he looks out and there's a warehouse. And as far as the eye can see, there's, canisters opening up and people sort of coming out of them. And, and then a 10-foot tall, slender frame robot kind of walks up, and it's top hat, and then another slender frame robot that looks a little bit different in its gloves, and the different all the different articles of clothing that they would have dealt with, which had different temperaments.
Right.
And they're all like, we've been working for this moment because
Holding it all together.
Yeah, holding it all together
The
for
great
you.
red pill moment.
Yeah, exactly. Here it is. And they sort of, whatever, they open up a gate, they open up a door, and they're, orbiting a fresh planet or something.
Yeah. Cool.
Something like that.
That's kind of a happy
Almost
ending.
like this was their weight in stasis as they got to another planet, and that's why they had to wake up because they were reaching to this other place.
Yeah, to
Right.
keep their brain paths stimulated so
Right.
that they wouldn't atrophy, and it's hundreds of years, and it,
Right.
yeah,
And then crescendoing in this sort of moment.
cool, man. What a great story.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you liked this episode, this series of episodes, please let us know at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at @getsbettercast. If you didn't like this episode, if you thought we should have had more Terminator-style robot fights, maybe Derek should have done like the Neo thing and like flown around the planet or something, I would say just wait. It gets better.